Yellow covers are probably some of the most iconic covers in comic book history. Let's check out my top 10 in my collection. Welcome back to another video. This really popped when I saw it. That to me is a monster increase. Again, this book got hot. This book is ready to go higher. So let's jump right into it. We are back today with another statue review from Diamond Select Toys. Without further ado, let's get into the review. What is going on YouTube? This is your host Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles, and thank you for joining me for another video here on the channel. Today, of course, we're talking about my top 10 yellow covers in my comic book collection. Now, I had somebody from the community ask me to do this video along the lines of red, yellow, gray, whatever you could think of, the top colored comics in my collection, and we're going to start off with yellow. But before we get into the video, like always, I want to remind you guys, if you're not a current subscriber of the channel, do yourself a favor, hit that sub button. I want you to smash the like button for me, because that helps the channel out. And if you're checking out merch, I got you covered. Check out the links below. You won't be disappointed. With that said, let's check out the hottest yellow covers in my collection. Starting off the list is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 8 and the first appearance of the Living Brain. Now, this cover was done by the great Steve Ditko, and it was published on January of 1964. There are currently 2,243 CGC Universal labels graded at this time. I bought this book when I first got back into collecting for under $200. I'm probably calling it anywhere from a 2.0 to a 2.5. Coming in at the 9th spot is another first appearance. It is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 56 and the first appearance of Captain Stacy. Of course, the cover art was done by the great John Romita Sr. and it was published December of 1967. Right now, there are a total of 1,546 CGC Blue Universal labels on the census. Believe it or not, I was lucky. I bought this book for around $25 about 6 years ago. Again, when I first got back into collecting, Amazing Spider-Man Silver Age keys were really underpriced during that time. I'm thankful I got back into collecting when I did. At number 8 on my top yellow cover comics in my collection is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 12 and the third appearance of my favorite Spidey villain, Doc Ock. Of course, the cover art was done by Steve Ditko and it was published in May of 1964. As it sits, there are 1,987 CGC Blue Universal grades on the census. Again, another book I picked up way back when I got back into collecting. This book is graded around, again, a 2.0, a 2.5. I try to stick to lower grades when it comes to Silver Age Spideys, only for the fact I don't want to cough out the money. You guys know I just completed my run, so I'm thankful I bought this book when I did. At the 7th spot is a book I was thankful I bought when I did. It is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 45 and the third appearance of Curt Connors as the Lizard. Of course, the cover art was done by my favorite artist, John Romita Sr., and this was published on February of 1967. I remember I bought this book off the shelf at Zap Comics for $45. As it stands, there are 1,991 Blue Universal labels graded by CGC. And this is also one of my favorite John Romita covers. At number 6 is a massive key. It is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 14 and the first appearance of the Green Goblin, yet another Silver Age Spidey villain. Of course, the cover art was done by Steve Ditko, and this book was published in July of 1964. As it stands right now, there are 4,382 Blue Universal grades on the CGC census. I bought this book around the 2020 mark, right as the market was heading higher. I paid $1,100 for this CGC 3.5. Not really sure what it's worth right now, but again, this book is not going anywhere, staying in my collection for the long haul. At the 5 spot is another classic John Romita cover. It is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 135 and the second full appearance of the Punisher. Now, I know, people are always going to say right now that this is the third appearance of the Punisher, but I'm sticking with the second full appearance. Either way, guys, this cover was done by the great John Romita Sr. and was published in August of 1974. As it stands right now, there are a total of 2,925 Blue Universal grades on the CGC census. This book can still be had for a really cheap amount of money. You can get a 5 to 6 to possibly even a 7.75 for around $100 to $120. To me, for a classic cover, an iconic book, and a second appearance, it's always worth it. Coming in at number 4 is another iconic cover by the great John Romita Sr., but this is also a classic storyline. It is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 121 and the death of Gwen Stacy. Again, of course, this was done by the great John Romita Sr., published in June of 1973, and there are a total of 6,933 Blue Universal grades on the CGC census, a lot more than all the books prior. Again, one of my favorite John Romita covers, a classic yellow key. It had to be in the top 5 of my classic yellow yellow cover list. At number 3 is the biggest book in my collection. It is a copy of Batman #1 and the first appearance of the Joker, and also the first appearance of the Cat, who later goes on to become Catwoman. This is also the first issue of this iconic series of Batman. The cover was done by Bob Kane and was published in March of 1940. Right now, there are a total of 146 out of 304 total copies that are graded at a Universal Blue Label. You guys know the story of how I acquired this book. I traded about 15 to 17 books, Silver Age Grails, just to acquire it. Again, a book I am happy to have in my collection, but it's only at the 3 spot when it comes to yellow covers. At number 2 is another massive grail. Unfortunately for this one, the cover is a color copy. It is a copy of Superman #1, and of course the first Superman in his own solo title. The cover was done by the great Joe Shuster and was published in June of 1939. Right now, as it sits, there are only 76 out of 180 total graded copies in a CGC Universal Blue Label. You can't go wrong buying a Superman 1, even when it's a coverless copy. To me, this iconic cover by the great Joe Shuster is one of the best that has ever been done. Superman by himself in front of Metropolis with that great yellow cover. And finally, at the top spot, guys, you knew it had to be a Spidey book. It is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man #129 and the first appearance of the Punisher and the classic cover by the great Gil Kane. I think Gil Kane is really an undervalued artist from the Bronze Age that nobody really seems to talk about that much. Either way, this book was published in January of 1974, and as it sits right now, there are a whopping 15,352 copies graded in a Universal Blue Label, according to CGC. You guys know there are plenty of copies of this one out there. At some point, I had about 7 copies in my collection at once because I absolutely love this cover by Gil Kane. It really doesn't get enough credit. Regardless, that is my top 10 yellow covers of all time. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, I was tagged by somebody in the comments to do this video, and I may do a few more, possibly gray, possibly red. We'll see. But either way, I'm going to tag everyone out there in the community, if you have a YouTube channel or even a platform, to give me your top yellow covers in your collection. With that said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This was Lawrence over at Mighty Comics Collectibles saying thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.